Okay, you can sign in here. This is the speaker comment board. If you want to speak or if you don't want to speak, you can join us You want to put that in a comment form? Did you get one? Okay, so all right. How you doing? Good. Good too. I'm surprised you even have it. I can remember my name.
I'll tell you one thing. I mean, the restaurants, the one that's still on top of everything still. That's all I know. I forgot. Make her top. The law. You don't know. I forgot it. You know.
Oh no, I'm not gonna. Look. You're right.
Thank you all for coming. This is a better turnout than I anticipated, and most of my town halls are. So thank you all so much for coming. I really appreciate it. Those of you who don't know me, I'm Councilwoman Liz Hebert. I represent the city, District 3, right here, right in our district right here. I want to thank, we have Parish Councilman Josh Carlson. You were District 4, I'm sorry, District 3 for the parish. We overlap a little bit, so we work quite a bit together. So thank you for coming. If any of you live in the, well, every inch of the city is in the parish, right? But if you have any questions about a perspective from a city council member, we can certainly bring Councilman Carlson up, whether you wanted to or not. You're invited to come up. Whether you were looking forward to it or not. While this is my council, position, this is something that we're certainly discussing at the council level. I really want to turn the attention to Roddy Bergeron. He is a member of my district, a dear friend, but he's also my appointee to this committee, and I appointed him a few months back because I knew he would do such a great job. He would come into this, all I asked, I didn't get involved, I pulled aside my control issues, and I told Roddy my goal for him was to be as knowledgeable as possible, look at the history, get with the previous charter members, get with people who may have played a role, past mayor presidents, to try and better understand the history before just moving forward. And then my goal also was not just to automatically move to consolidation, deconsolidation, it was to explore any and all options, everything's on the table. So I want to thank Roddy for all the time and the energy you put into this, I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You did a lot of work. He even went as far back to, how far back did you go looking at our financials?
The late 80s, early 90s?
Late 80s, early 90s.
I got some parish budget coverage that I'll probably I need to go down. But,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the format how tonight will go is Roddy will have a presentation. You said it's about 10 minutes.
Yeah, it won't take long.
It won't take long, just for us to all get caught up. We're going to have some Q&A. I'm available for questions, but since Roddy's done the due diligence on this committee, I want to certainly lead him to it. We have a couple of committee members here as well. They're welcome to speak up. Josh can certainly provide some insight as well. We do have a hard stop at 7 p.m. Because we have to be out of here by 7:30, and I know we all move slow. So I want to make sure I'm not kicking you out, right? So hard stop at 7, but I'm here to hang out with you as long as you need and provide my contact information. We can all stay in touch. So with that, I'll leave it for you, Ryan. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. We wanted to put this meeting tonight to get public input and let everybody ask questions and provide their public comment on our draft report. Now, I will say this is just a draft report. We still have more time to add, make changes, do whatever. Please, if you have public comment, please let us know. At the end of the slide, you'll see an email address you can email us for, but also public comments. We have a Protect the City Committee meeting on the 22nd at 5:30 at the City Hall. So please come out to that because we'll be discussing the draft report, public comment, and getting public input from the administration and everybody else. So it's really important. So Liz, can I ask the paper? How do you drive? Because I don't have it.
I can certainly
Thank you. You'll drive that.
drive to that.
All right, y'all. So, first slide, please. So this is Miss Liz Hebert and myself. We're here to, see if we can look at our consolidated form of government. Are there issues with it, and are there ways we can work through those issues? So, Liz, next slide. So, what is our Protect the City Committee? So, we were a citizen committee put together to investigate and look into an open and transparent discussion of the city's consolidation, consolidation, and continuing problems that we see with it. We've had 30 plus hours of public meetings. You can find them all online on LCP's website. We've gone through thousands and thousands of pages of research, budget documents, sales tax collection reports, you name it, we've seen it. We had a 28-page report to find at the end of the presentation. Well, I'll give you direction on how you can find that report. And then 5 town halls this week, including one at ACA. And then I think each district is doing one this week as well. So next slide, please. Here are our committee members. So Mark Pope, Ms. Tina Sheldon-Bingham, who I always mix her name up and say Tina Sheldon, and she always corrects me. So I got it right for the slide. Stuart Bro, so Joseph Tadakawa, who was here in attendance. Jan Swift was our committee chair, and I don't know, Jan, she said she tried to make it like, oh, I said that Jan has been an awesome chair for our committee. She has been really taking a step back and make sure that we're on a good path, and make sure that we're not deviating from what our goals were, and just overall be a good voice of reason for us. So I want to thank Jan, even though she's not here, Spirit's there. And Mr. Bill Londeck, I think, is here attending as well. Here tonight. So it's a lot of stories. All right, so we give you a brief history. So back in the 1970s, there was an idea to consolidate, right? We tried full consolidation. This is what everybody refers to as the Hebert plan, the one parish, right? We tried that, it failed. Mostly because the city residents voted it down. In the 83 and 84 era, we said, hey, let's better align the city and the parish. So we reformed parish government, got rid of the police jury system, and went with the parish government. In the 90s, parish government started out called 20 state mandates. A charter commission was called to look into it. They recommended consolidation. There was a vote on consolidation. And then for 4 years, we figured out how we were going to try and consolidate. So we figured out what was going to happen with different departments, equipment, things like that. In 97, lawsuits were filed. I read through those lawsuits. And then consolidation happened because those lawsuits failed on technicalities, basically. In 2011, there was a vote for full deconsolidation. That failed. In 2018, charter changes were up. Those passed and split the city council. And split the city parish council into a city and parish council. And then in 2021, the Protect the City Committee was formed. And then we're here tonight. So move to the next slide, please. All right, so basics of what consolidated government is. So it is between the city of Lafayette and the parish of Lafayette. Youngsville, and Dusong, and Carenbrook, Scott, and Dusong, and Youngsville, and all those cities are not a part of consolidated government. They do work sometimes with consolidated government, but they are not a part of consolidated government. Consolidation of operations, but not entities, I'll talk later on. We didn't combine entities. So we consolidated to a mayor president. We had a finance department, an IT department, and a public works department. Pre-consolidation, we had 7 city, 7 parish council members. Then we consolidated to 9 city parish council members. And then after the 2008 split, we had 5 city, 5 parish council members. As a tidbit, we're one of 48 consolidated counties and parishes in the U.S. out of, I think, 3,100 counties and parishes. So 3,140 consolidated counties and parishes. This is just a basic overview of our consolidated government. Let's look at that slide, please. All right, so some issues to address. So this is where we're starting to meet the table. So, city money being spent outside the city. We found some projects, a few other things that show that we're spending city money outside the city limits. That's not definitely a bad thing. There needs to be some controls and some checks and balances on it. City money paying for parish responsibilities. Recently, we had some drainage issues that came up. The city has put up some money for that. I think some of those issues for small bank rules and things are outside of the parish. But there's some city money paying for drainage responsibilities outside the city. One thing, too, that I want to be clear is that it's not just the city that's being let down by consolidation. One of the goals of consolidation is to make sure that the parish budget became stronger. That is not happening right now. So I want everybody to think about that, too. It's not just, when we talk about this, the city has issues with consolidation. There's some issues that will hold the parish back as well. One thing that we looked at was sales tax collection. So back in the 90s, during the first year of consolidation, sales tax collection was between $2 and $3 million a month for the parish. When we just looked at the last sales tax collection in the last few months, it's about $680,000. Sales tax collection is real low down the parish. A lot of that has to do with annexation, for the most part. But they lose a lot of sales tax, all that sales tax, whatever they get, whatever property gets annexed. A conflict of interest in a mayor president. So this is one that we talk about a lot and brought up. In the charter, it states that the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer of the city, Chief Executive Officer of the parish, and the Chief Executive Officer of parish government is the mayor president. We brought up time and time again in the past, how can one person serve 2 masters? How can one person, when there is a conflict between 2 entities, ensure that there is an orderly discussion about those conflicts? I would say that this is not, and some people brought up that this is an issue to the current mayor president. I brought this issue up with Joe Guerrero on the same topic. I brought this issue up with Joe Guerrero. I've actually spoke to John Kerry about this as well. I don't believe we should split a mayor president. there's a conflict of interest issue with that mayor president's role, and that the city of Lafayette, we'll talk about it in the recommendations, we need that on the city mayor. City councils don't have full control over city dollars. That's an issue that can be worked on, like the city and the parish council can work through those issues and figure this out. The parish council doesn't have full control of parish dollars as well when it comes down to budgeting. That the parish tax dollars, the parish citizens pay for it. The city can have say in those tax dollars as well. There's a mistrust in local government because it's too complicated. Our old bond attorney stated that our form of government is the most complicated form of government in Louisiana. We also heard from our allocation formula specialist that when I talked to them and said, are there any comparable governments that y'all do allocation schedules for? Is there any form of government like Lafayette Consolidated governments that you can compare to? He said no. There's no other form of government like this that they do. They do governments all over. And then cost allocations that are too subjective. One of the things we found is that the cost of consolidated government, which we were told is around 5% of the total budget, the way they split that up can be done in many different ways. We saw that during the Durrell administration. 1 year it was 55-45, so 55% was the cost of the city, 45% was the cost of the parish. The next year when Joe Romero came in, he flipped that to 80% parish, give or take, 80% city, give or take, and 20% parish. So the way that the methods come up, when we talk with the cost allocation specialist, there's multiple ways to slice that pie, multiple legal ways to slice that pie, but they all boil down to what makes sense to the administration. Next slide, please. All right, so some issues that we need to be aware of. Services not being properly reimbursed. So I brought up, there were discussions with Lloyd Tubes, fire services. So if I'm not aware, fire services are 100% paid for by the city. Parish reimburses some of the money. I brought up a question to Ms. Tubes that says, anytime the city goes out, the city fire department goes out to an unincorporated area, it goes out of fire, all those services being properly reimbursed, which they have to be, or they should be. She said they didn't know. They never would track if those services are being properly reimbursed, and I asked if there was a way to do it. She said there is a possible way to do it, but we were never told whether or not those services are being properly reimbursed for their fees. Intergovernmental agreements are needed. So when the city and the parish work together, and their services that are being used, we need to make sure that there's intergovernmental agreements. I believe that they have to be done in a legal sense, that they have to have a legal contract between the city and the parish, so the city and consolidated for services. It helps kind of lay out what services are being paid for and the results of those services and how it benefits the city and the parish. Allocation of labor costs have varied over time, despite the allocation formula staying the same for the last few years. There's been no oversight for legality or fairness in some situations. And the administration, when we asked for things like drainage works and drainage projects to see where they're being spent at, did not provide some of that information to us or verify project costs that we asked for. Next slide, please, Mr. Lewis. All right, so here's where I think we're going to start talking about some of these recommendations. All right, so the first thing that has caught all the headlines that everybody probably here before has heard of is that our committee has recommended deconsolidation. And I want to put an asterisk on there and say that deconsolidation, in my opinion, you don't have to go back to the way it was in the 90s. Before we consolidated, there's smart ways of doing this. There's plans out there that we believe people can work with to see what the outcome is. I don't believe that we should put a vote of deconsolidation up until we know what that looks like, a plan. In the 90s, we learned our lesson. When we put up a vote for consolidation, we voted on it, and then we figured out what it looked like. And I think we've learned that you're going to get burned that way, and we need to know what the outcome looks like. And there's different ways of splitting this up, right? We've talked about letting the parish own drainage, right? Keeping those consolidated services, letting the parish own drainage, letting the city own services, and letting the city and parish work together via intergovernmental agreements to figure out services for each entity. There's ways of working through this without having a third entity consolidated government. That's another issue too. Whenever we consolidated in the 90s, we took all the services and we didn't get rid of the city and the parish, right? The city and the parish always existed. It never went away. We created a third entity called Lafayette Consolidated Governments and we put all the services in there. I said it in the current article today when Christian called me. I think we used the word consolidation a little loose during that. I don't think this was really what the heart of what we wanted to do with consolidation, and I think it led to some complexity issues that we're trying to work through. We can do it a lot better, without going back to the way it was in the 90s, with it being equitable for the parish too. And I want to make that clear. Put it in the report, I make sure it's in the report. Anything that comes out of this committee, and anything that goes to the voters that affects the parish, has to be equitable to the parish, to where all parish residents. Just because we're in the city, doesn't mean just ignore the parish or let the parish flounder. And I'll put that out there right now and tell everybody that. Any plan that comes together has to include the parish, has to make sure that's equitable to the parish citizens and the parish council as well. City would be better served by having this on there. We talked about this, right? Like, we talked about this for years, I believe. The city needs to have its own mayor, all right? We've looked at population trends for the city and the parish. The city population has dwindled, and the unincorporated, or areas outside the city have continued to grow. It will become a point where and we believe it's going to happen in the next few years, is that the city population is going to be lower than the rest of the parish. So we may see things where it's 48% population inside the city and 51, 52% outside. It used to be consolidated, it was around 65, 35. So the city population inside the city has dwindled. Eventually, I feel like it would become a constitutional issue where we're electing, currently, the CEO of the mayor of the CEO of the city of Lafayette, who's currently the mayor president, without needing the majority of the city votes. I don't believe that. And I'll say this right now. If we split the vote, all right, that does not mean that Josh Gilroy cannot run for office again. That does not mean that he cannot be the city of Lafayette mayor. All right? So I just want to let y'all know that. Like, people who believe that if we split the city and the parish, or split the mayor's role for the city and the parish, that Josh Gilroy cannot be the city mayor, wrong. And I will challenge people on that who are wanting this split because of that. There is a way, and he can legally run and become the city mayor of Lafayette. So I'll put that out there. So people who say that we need a split because we don't care for the current mayor president, I'll put that out there. There's not a reason to split. And I believe that some people may be a little shocked the next election time when we see who the mayor of the city of Lafayette, who decide to split, who that person could be. So I just want to put that out there. Don't think about splitting this role if you don't like the current person who's in there, because the current person, Mayor President Hebert, could become the next city mayor too. So think about that. That's not a reason to split this up. There's other reasons why. I think really important reasons why. Split the budget to make sure it's clear who pays for it. Right now we have a consolidated budget. I've brought up maybe that we can think about splitting the budget in a couple of ways, like city dollars versus parish dollars versus consolidated dollars. I was told that's illegal in the current charter. That's some changes we can make right now. That's some changes we can make right now. If the city and parish want to come together, make some minutes, and make a charter for that, we could split that budget document up a couple of ways. Reinforce the city council's authority for city matters. It needs to be spelled out in our charter in a clearer way. It does say the city is the governing authority over the city of Lafayette. It needs to be, the language needs to be more enforced. We need to ensure that the city has the final say in city matters. We need to make sure that the parish has the final say in parish matters. It's super important for autonomy for those two entities, because there is a city, there is a parish, and the city council is the governing authority over the city of Lafayette, and the parish council is the governing authority over the parish of Lafayette. We need to enforce that language, and we need to make sure that both of them have final say in their respective matters. Add a citizen oversight committee from LUS and LUS Fiber. This was one that I brought to the table and said, what is a better way that citizens can get involved in LUS and LUS Fiber, have some say, and assist the city council or the LUA, the same thing, in making decisions and having some public input. A while back we talked about the IRP process, which is how the LUS defines its power resource plan.
That's not a good
We believe that citizens kind of need to have a say, have a citizens committee. And it can look different ways. We toyed with ideas of just citizens. It could be engineers too, or a combination of the two. We also talked about adding a budget oversight committee. We believe that having citizens overlook the budget and assist the city council, kind of like what we've been doing the last month, is looking through the budget. I think that's a big help for the city council members. They're doing day-to-days. They need somebody who's going to help them look at the budget. Restore the city council's authority over all LUS and fiber decisions. This is one that we thought was clear within the issue that came up already in committee with the LUS Fiber director. Our charter is not consistent when it comes to picking the director for LUS. It lists the LUS director, it lists their jobs and responsibilities, and then it says that the LPUA is the government, is the authority over and has a picking in the LUS director. It doesn't say anything about the LUS Fiber director, and there was some questioning and there was some issues that people brought up about the decision to not include the city council in the final say of the LUS Fiber director. I think that needs to be spelled out in our charter, and that can be done like tomorrow. That can be done quickly with the charter change or charter amendment to vote everything else. It doesn't require a full charter change for that to happen. And then one thing I brought up with us is having elected city police chiefs. This is one that was brought up to us, to the council, to the elected city committee. We believe that it's something to look into and investigate. Could we have an elected city police chief like other cities are going to do? It's kind of a new thing that people are looking into. They say that having a city police chief that's accountable to the voters allows better policing policies and better policing in general. It's something that the city council is looking into. And last but not least, we're going to ask the city council to please call a charter commission. City and parish councils to call a charter commission or work together on amendments to the current charter to try and get some of these issues resolved and try to get some of these issues put in place without having to go to and still having to go to the voters. I would rather see amendments worked on together and see if that can work. We've been told that if there's too much changes or if we have to abolish the current charter, that it has to go to a charter commission. If we rewrite the whole document. So there's some concern there that amendments may not be possible. That's for legal to figure out but there's a place to go through that. Liz, next slide, please. All right, so the process to make changes. So in stage one of this right now is to protect the city committee. We're going to give, some recommendations to the city council, all right? Final adoption is going to be the next couple of weeks. It probably won't be on the 22nd because we're still getting public input, so we're going to push that back to July. But we're still having our final report coming out hopefully mid-July. Charter changes. If they decide that they want to move forward with charter changes, a charter commission can be called. It requires the city and the parish council, I think it's a supermajority vote, if I'm not mistaken, to call a charter commission. And then the city and parish council can also propose amendments to it. That requires a supermajority vote of the city and parish council. And third, if those amendments or the charter commission calls for changes, it will go to a vote of the people. It requires a simple majority of the vote of the parish. Next slide, Ms. Lynn, please. All right. Link to draft report and email. So access the report, you go to LaFayetteLA.gov, click on Government Directory, click on City Council. Scroll down to the document section is the PTC committee report draft. Click on that. It's a 28-page report. Questions or comments, you can email PTCcommittee@LaFayetteLA.gov. That will go to all the members of the PTC committee, and we'll give you either questions, your comments, or your support for whatever changes you see or whatever is in our report. We highly recommend you let us know. Either which way, like the changes, don't like the changes, like to see this happen, why can't we do this, why can't we do that? Let us know if you'd like to answer those questions and get that in front. That was also the next slide. Public comments and questions. We have public comment with me.
Ms. Veronica has been taking your questions. Ms. Veronica has been taking your list. Do we already have some questions, Veronica? Let me help you grab those. I'll play them.
And AOC asked that we read the questions, or
Sure.
everybody ask a question.
More or less people wants to see.
Okay, people want to speak?
And if you haven't signed a sign-in sheet, I'm gonna pass this one around so we can have everybody accounted for, get everybody signed.
Sure, absolutely. And I did see Ms. Jan Swift, chairman of the Protect the City Committee, arrived, so thank you, Jan, for coming. Parish Councilman John Gilbo arrived, but I don't, he stepped out.
He only stayed for a few minutes.
Only stayed for a few minutes, but he was here, so I just want to acknowledge that. One more thing before we get to the questions, I do want to echo what Roddy said, is that I was never a fan of the committee name Protect the City, because we need to work together. It's not just the city. The city can't do it alone. The parish can't do it alone. We need to work together. So it shouldn't be an us versus them versus us. It should never be that way. We should be working together for what best fits our community and what you need and what you want.
And government should always meet with the people in the cities. So
Absolutely.
we have to make sure that our government properly reflects what our community wants and needs. And I want to echo something that, again, we're all residents of the parish even inside the city. We can love our city and also love our parish. It's not wrong to say, I want to look out what's best for our city, but we also have to recognize that things that we do, or changes that we make, can affect the parish as well. We're all parish residents, right? So keep that in mind through this whole process. Don't let it turn into us versus them situation. We don't want to have that happen at all. And I've echoed that statement throughout our committee meetings. Like, if we let it turn that way, we're never going to get anywhere. There's going to be some give and take. There's going to be some compromises that may have to happen. But at the end of the day, we need to move forward with a government that best reflects the interests of the community.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to go through and I'll invite, just raise your hand, Brian Farrell. Okay. Thank you, Brian, and just speak loud. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I had a few questions. I noticed that there was quite a bit of mention about the allocation and how it seems every separate department has its own allocation. Two kind of questions on that. Number one, why do we not have a standardized process? And number two, why are our councils not enforcing a standardized process? It seems you mentioned that past administrations just kind of throw numbers out there and that's how it goes. And while we may not all approve of the current administration, it still seems like our citizens' oversight is in both of our parish both our parish and our city council. And it sounds like perhaps maybe we have an issue there where they're not doing their job.
Yeah, so the answer on the allocation formula. So there is no, so we're not, let's talk about the allocation formula expert. Right? You said there's about 18 different formulas they could use. And it ranges from population, which was the one that Joey Durrell used, which is 55-45 at the time. And then there's one that's called undedicated resource funds, which is basically general fund money, which is the one that other mayor presidents have used. Joe Rover, I think, used that one. I think the current mayor president used one or some similar form of that one. There's multiple different ones. Like the one that he put out there was that number of traffic lights in your city is one that you can, like some of these allocations, some of these formulas don't make any sense, but it's a method that you can use. So there's no wrong way to do it, right? Like, that's what the allocation formula specialist told us. There's different ways to cut that pie. I think that's part of the problem, is that there is no standardized way of doing it. And I question him if there is a law that says they have to split allocation first. He said there's none. There are some federal laws that affect federal entities, but none at the state level that say we don't even have to use allocation formula. And we don't have to go to an allocation formula specialist. Like, at the end of the day, it's up to the city and parish councils to basically come to a decision and say, what works best for us? Like the administration kind of gets us, I guess, the term I used was in the ballpark of what we should be. And then the city and parish councils have to come together and say what works best for us at the end of the day. So really, the allocation formula is just a method of getting us close to where it needs to be. But as you said, like, the two formulas that the last time we used have been all over the place, which to me, I brought up before, like, it needs to be, like, between different administrations, it kind of needs to be the same process. It just puts too much up in there.
The original Charter Commission suggested that we follow the fairest way. Fair can be relative, right? What's fair to me may be not fair to Claire, and it rarely is. But what the original Charter Commission suggested was by population was the fairest way. And as you know, that ranges. And currently we do rough estimate about 80% is paid for by the city, 20% by the parish. We had a recent debate at the council floor between the city council and the mayor as to the upcoming budget. He asked him, what is something that you anticipate changing? And my big request to him was to reevaluate the allocation tables and to explore the option of going back to the Charter Commission's original suggestion by population. And his suggestion was to go by usage rather than population. So there's a little bit in my concern there that I mentioned to him that night, was it's going to me it'd be hard to justify usage on a lot of these items. So again, that's where it gets into what's fair, what's not. Betsy, you're next. You wanted, oh, you did not, I'm so sorry. Did you wish to speak? Okay, I'm sorry. You're good.
And I guess it's really not so much anything about this, it's just a matter of first appreciation for the volunteers on this committee, because I know them too well. I think the biggest thing for me is working on committees and doing community work for a number of years. that this report does not get put on a shelf. That this committee be given the support it needs to follow through with this to the end, because ultimately, something needs to be done. It's not working, it's broken, and we should fix it.
Yeah.
So thank you.
So to go on that comment again, we definitely see some issues that we need to work through, right? And the process to get it can go multiple different ways. We need to figure it out, and we need to make sure that we actually put some meaningful changes into our charter, fix these issues, and come to the conclusion of something that works for the city and the parish, that's equitable to the city, that works for the parish as well. It has to happen. So yeah, I didn't work the last 4 or 5 months on this committee just to print it out and put it on a shelf on my slide. No, like, there's too many meals for that.
And Andrew, you're next. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm Andrew DeYoung, and I spoke to the committee. It was asked to be on the agenda about 3 weeks ago. I worked for LUS for 30 years, so I have a lot of experience in that area, so I tried to give them an idea of how LUS works today. I worked in the past and I work today, what laws they have to follow, what, especially the bond ordinances and bond covenants that require them to do certain things certain ways. To me, the biggest issue about LUS, about consolidation, obviously, is LUS. We need protection for LUS. We need, remember, it's a city asset. It's $250 million a year budget. It's got assets in the billions of dollars. You own coal plants. You own, now, those of you that like green energy, don't get upset. You also own a share in wind energy and in all the renewables that are on the market today. But these things need to be protected. And we need a strong city council, strong oversight, and strong definition of how it's governed in order to have it protected. And that's why I support consolidation. My background, I told this to, I'm not sure if I told it to the whole committee, but I did for Jen and I.
Consolidation or deconsolidation?
I said deconsolidation, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Know that, please?
Yeah, please, deconsolidation.
For the record.
Yeah. Sorry. But, yes, I also have a background of, I worked for the parish government. I was actually the chief administrative officer and finance director for the parish government in the 80s. I'll tell you folks, it's no different today than it was back then. The parish had no money. It has no money today. It is it's a systemic problem. It's not a problem that will go away unless we take serious, serious issues, serious concern about the fate of the parish government. So yes, it hasn't worked for parish government, right? I agree with that. But it's not working for city government either, insofar as we're not giving the protections we need over our biggest assets. So I just would like to encourage everyone to speak up and talk to the people that represent you about deconsolidation.
Yeah. Look, I want a strong parish government too. I want one that can tackle drainage and roads and bridges and all the other stuff that we want and need. It's not to throw the parish out. Somebody said, like, are you just going to throw the baby out with the bathwater? No, we don't. I don't want any plan in place that would hurt the parish or put them in a worse situation than we're around. Like, I will not support anything that goes that way. I'm upfront about that too. We need involvement from city council, parish council, to come up with a plan, or the part of it to come up with a plan, so we can work our way through this. We don't want to leave anybody hanging out to dry. You're right. Like, we need a strong parish council, just like we need a strong city council. We need a strong parish government, just like we need a strong city government.
And again, I want to reiterate that this is not a hard and fast document that cannot be changed. Why we're having these town hall meetings is to get your input, your feedback, so we can make changes to this document. So this is not, to remind you, this is not the final document. We're going to be collecting all of your comments. If you don't want to leave one tonight, you can always email and let us know what your concerns are, but this is not the end-all, do-all. There's plenty of time to speak to that. So I prefer to not speak in just generalizations. You don't support it, or you do support it. I prefer to hear your thoughts on the plan as proposed. Wayne, you're next.
Or anything we may miss, or anything we're not looking at, because we're all human beings, we miss things, or we all look at things different ways, so we definitely want to hear different people's perspectives.
You mentioned several things earlier. You alluded to numbers. You looked at the history of finances. Are those available in the online report when we pull it up?
So at the last Protect the City Committee meeting, I asked that we look at appendix that has all those documents on it. I don't know if it's been created yet, but I have asked for one, and I want to approve a final draft unless those documents are all in there. So yes, we will be putting them in there in appendix.
But they're not in there now.
They're currently not in there right now. I asked for them.
So we don't know this history, okay? Now, what ideas were presented to say, don't consolidate, don't deconsolidate? What ideas were presented by this committee?
To not deconsolidate?
Yeah.
I asked you a question, what does deconsolidation look like? Is it going back and splitting up and saying everybody gets duplicate?
No, not moving forward.
Not doing anything at all?
Yes.
But we haven't uncovered issues, though. We've seen some issues. I'll bring up,
Was any ideas presented though?
besides deconsolidation, yes, we brought up changes they can make in the existing document as well.
Well, changes in document, but just to say, leave things as they are.
No,
No. No.
we've encountered too many issues to say we're just going to leave it alone.
Well, I've lived over here in Lafayette for 23 plus years. I've also lived in New Orleans, in the Orleans Parish, within that area. I've lived in Jefferson Parish, Baton Rouge, small town, Homeland, DeRidder. Lafayette area is ideally considered for consolidated government. Why do I say that? It's small geographically. You've got people that live north, east, south, west, all around the city, and you've got businesses strung out in every direction. So, to me, it's something went awry when we let this thing get out of hand, that we can't coordinate activities between the city and the parish. And that we need to look at this thing. Now, one of the issues, and you hear about the finances, and the reason I asked, is on these roadways and everything, you see businesses pop up. What does businesses do? They have sales taxes, so that's why the cities want to claim them. So the city runs out and grab them. But would the businesses prosper if they didn't have residences strung throughout the parish, in this populous parish that we live in? No, those businesses would drive, because people are not going to drive 30, 40, 50 miles to go to a business. They'll drive 5 or 10 miles. Yeah, that's the kind of things you've got to look at, the good and the bad, and what all supports the city. You know, just like our kids, they're going to go play at Picard Park, at Youngsville, or Moore Park in the North Park, Brown Park. They can go play anywhere in here. You know, where do the drainage ditches stop at the city lines? No. Where do they drain? They drain all the way through the parish to the river, and then create the problems that we have flooding in the river. You know, that's a problem there. You know, same thing with roads. Roads run through all directions. And I think we're kind of saying, well, yes, that's a maintenance problem, and it's an expensive problem to maintain that. And why do people want to live in suburbia? Well, because they got a little bit more yard. Maybe the kids, when they were growing up, they could play around in the yards and the streets without having a busy street right next to them, or some other businesses that create a lot of traffic and everything else. You know, right now we've got these businesses that we having meetings going on today for these ECD districts where we want to pay people, some of them, what, $76,000 already to manage some of these ECDs, some of them are less, you know, because, well, you know, we're trying to develop these businesses. You know, this is the kind of things that, where we're paying all that money, where's that money coming from? Well, it's supposedly coming from these tax districts, but they haven't done anything yet.
Stay on the topic for this,
Okay,
please. Thank you.
well, the topic is the finances, I think, that, yeah, the parish, because all the businesses have been annexed to these cities, whether it be Youngsville or Lafayette proper, you can't tell where the city lines are or the parish lines are in most of these things. I bet if I asked the people here in this room, other than your house, where's the parish line on the other side of town, you couldn't tell me between the city and the parish where the line is. That's how co-mingled we are. And you got to think of that, hey, you know, it's all one big thing, and we all should be working together. There's enough division going on in this country, in this state, that we should be able to get along with this thing here. So I think we got to reconsider this whole process here and look at how we want to approach this thing. Yeah, there might be some problems to iron out with some of these arrangements, but I think they can be ironed out rather than worrying about, well, we're not going to have enough population come the next census, and that we might not have a mayor because we won't have enough people inside the city limits. You know, that's just growth, and that's just take your chances, go with the flow. You know, everybody can look at the Lafayette area of the consolidated group. When we talk about Lafayette, people don't think, well, the city, I mean the parish. They talk about Lafayette as a whole. Think of it as a whole.
Tony Bailey?
Right.
And I'm also going to give some of the committee members a minute to speak as well.
One of my questions was actually, Mr. Wayne talked on it a little bit, so I'll clarify it. Maybe you can answer it the same or a different way. Was what did the committee actually talk about? What the report actually said that they only looked at the benefits of the consolidation. Did they spend any time at what the downside might be with the deconsolidation at all?
Oh, yeah, yeah. So one of the problems that could happen with the deconsolidation effort is that we split services up, just in my opinion. Like the way we had services in the 90s, where it was the parish has drainage, the city has drainage, we had duplication of services. That could be an outcome, right? If it goes to a charter commission, like let's say it passes the city and parish council, right? It goes to a charter commission, the charter approves it, it goes to the vote, like there's a couple of stages we have to go through. If we went back to the way it was in the 90s with duplicate services, I'm going to go with that. There's a smarter way to do it. So yes, there is a downside. We have talked about it. And we've talked about things like, why don't we just do full annexation as well in the incorporated area? The legal issue we're into is that I'm under the impression that you can't force people to be annexed. That people have property owners have rights. And if you annex someone, what happens to their property taxes? They go from paying just parish property taxes to paying parish and city property taxes. There's people who live in Oakland who don't want to be taxed anymore. Why wouldn't they? It also comes with city regulations, right? Like when you're part of the city, you have certain city regulations that the unincorporated area doesn't have, like sewage requirements, things like that. But I believe, and Liz, correct me, but what I heard was you can't have a septic system inside the city limits, right? Or a septic system inside the city, like that's part of code regulations. You can't have it, unincorporated area, you can. So what happens if you get annexed into the city forcibly? You go to do home improvements on your house and realize you have to go tie into a sewer system that's going to cost you $10, $20, $100,000. I mean, there's issues
That
happen.
happens to me, actually.
So yeah, so that's part of probably part of a subdivision. They got annexed in. You may not agree with it, but that's the outcome, right? Like there's it's about 20 houses. Like that's part of it, and that's my concern when we talk about deconsolidation. There could be a right way to do it. There's definitely a wrong way to do it. And like we need to have a plan, and the voters need to understand that plan, and need to make sure that when we talk about it, that everybody's at the table talking about it. It's not just the city talking about what this looks like. It's also the unincorporated area, other municipalities who can be affected by any form of changing of consolidated government. Like, that needs to happen. And yes, you're right. We have talked about what the downsides of it, and there are downsides. So I'm not trying to paint a rosy picture of deconsolidation. Like, it could be that. And we've seen what happens in the 90s, whenever we vote on something and then make a plan. Like, we see what happens. Like, issues come up that we didn't really think of.
So two more, I'll be brief.
Yes.
One was the draft report also stated that there's absolutely no cost savings to consolidation when we did consolidate. You said you look back to the 80s, all the way back. How is it that, and you just said on one of your slides, that the finance department, the IT department, the public works department, that was all consolidated? I mean, as a small business owner, if you do a merger and you have two IT departments, now you only have one, there has to be a cost savings there. So can you clarify that?
Yep. So when you merge, you have duplication of people who
You eliminate.
yeah. We didn't eliminate anybody.
Oh,
That's
since the 80s?
like when we consolidated, since we consolidated services, the bonus together, we didn't eliminate anybody. It took all the parish workers. So yeah, normally during a merger, you will find duplicate people and you will eliminate those positions. The original.
Or you put somebody in a different position?
Well, you put my position of paying them. So what happened was, Like, the original charter commission came out, they said there'd be a savings of $3 to $5 million. They attained that number because they said, oh, through attrition, when people leave or whatever, we just eliminate those positions. They never eliminated those positions. So the original plan was to take everybody in, but eventually eliminate positions, right? They didn't eliminate any positions, I think, until maybe Joey Durrell started coming and started looking at removing positions, but we've grown positions since then. So the original plan, say, was there.
Think that, I was at the meeting when you adopted the report, you had one dissenting vote from the committee, I think. The question is, how will you get the parish council on board to vote to put the charter commission together to deconsolidate? You know, you're going to have to give them political cover. If you read between the lines, the parish doesn't have money. The city is giving the parish money to prop it up. If I'm a parish councilman, I'm wondering how are we going to run the parish without the money we're currently getting from the city of Lafayette?
Parks and Recreation. He put the motion on the floor, and not one parish council member seconded it. Now, I don't know about the story long, but that's what we were told. How do you find that? How does Liz or Nanette or all of our city council members, how do they fight for us if we have to have the parish council approve if there's $1 of minimum funds? I don't know if you mentioned that. There's a $1 roll in our bill. If there's $1 of mixed funds between city and parish, the parish council, without any rules, there's no ordinance talking about this. They've been told by legal counsel that they have the right to vote on city tax dollars that are paid by city residents. These are not tax dollars paid by Broussard, Youngsville, Karen Crow, Dusance. Did I say Youngsville? Scott, excuse me, Scott. So I don't wanna, I'm taking up too much time, but I've gotta tell you, we have heard and heard and heard. We've talked among ourselves like, I can't believe this. I was not for deconsolidation. I'm proposing as the chair that instead we look at this as reorganization of delivery of government services and work as a team. We've never funded our parish government adequately. Our city is under 1961 tax dollars. How in the world can you do that? How can you do that? How are you going to help us? How are we going to fix the courthouse? How are we going to fix things? Because the team don't work together. So I know I'm taking too much time, but I just wanted you to know that everything in here, I question too. I question too. And we heard from people over and over. We heard from everybody from that age on said that consolidation was meant to streamline, and it didn't go as they expected. Now, the answer is, how can we move forward? And we're asking for a charter commission to answer some of these questions. We're not asking for any decisions today. We're asking to move forward. And as a team, we move forward. I'm gonna go sit down and thank you.
And kind of echo Dan a little bit too, like, I have two girls, I'm 7-year-old and 4-year-old, and like, I want to build a city and a factory they're proud of, and say, I like what you say here. It's one of the things that we always talk about, is like, what happens, why do people leave our city, why do people leave our parish? We need to build something that's bigger than ourselves, right? Like, we need to have a place that is for our families, a place where we really have roots here too, and we need a strong city to come parish in order to do that. Like, it's bigger than ourselves, you know? It's bigger than one person. And that's what we need to take from here, is more than just one person.
Not just the city of Lafayette, but the people in the smaller cities and the people in unincorporated Lafayette. We can get into a very legitimate debate about whether or not deconsolidation is the right answer, but something needs to change. I think it's important to really point out here that when we're talking about like what's fair to the city, what's fair to the parish when it comes to allocated expenses, my argument is that there is no fair way to allocate most of these expenses. Perfect example is the mayor president. So currently the city pays for 80% of the mayor president's, not just the salary, but the office of the mayor president. The parish pays for 20%. Here's the thing, the city needs a 100% mayor. The city is a $500 million a year enterprise. We need a full-time mayor because that is a full-time job. If we want to run government like a business, what $500 million a year business would you be okay having a part-time CEO of?
It is Will Teely, but it says Will Thomas. But you signed him?
My name is Will Teely, despite my card saying Will Thomas. I was a little excited when I wrote it. And so I think a lot of our conversation has been about money and finances and if the parish or city are paying an adequate share of their fair share of the costs. What I worry about is the loss of autonomy for the city to govern itself, and not just with the needing to have its own mayor, but I almost think a bigger issue is the city needs its own attorney and not a city parish attorney. I think we've already lost our autonomy. I think the Pandora's box is already open. We've already lost it. The city council this last year passed ordinances that weren't defended by the city parish attorney. So we have, so everyone who lives in the city elected a city council that represents city people. They passed a law that they felt was the best law for their city, and it just fizzles into oblivion, because it can't be defended in court. I don't feel I have a local government at that point. I'm not a lawyer, but I almost question if like a judge would uphold our current form of government as constitutional. It feels like a hostage, like council meetings feel like a hostage negotiation.
Keep it on the draft. Keep the question
So
on the draft.
the draft,
Thank you.
the bullet point. So the bullet points of the draft, like we need to do this. We need our own city. The city needs its own city attorney.
And to Will's point too, one thing that's always in the back of my head is, what happens if we get sued? If someone decides to sue either the city or LCG or the parish, and they say our charter's unconstitutional, what happens at that point, right? What do we do? I mean, at what point, what do? Do we go back to the way it was before? I mean, this is a question that needs to be answered, and like, at a time where we can put changes together and make it a little bit more equitable and say that, you know, there's may have some constitutional issues we can work through. Like, there's a concern that I have brought up, like, internally with myself, like, I was in a committee, but like, what happens if we get sued, and what's the process for it? It is a concern.
Ms. Connie, you're next.
My problem is that when we, did the fix the charter in this last time, a lot of us asked the committee, begged the committee for our own mayor. We thought that our city deserved a mayor, just like Broussard, Gumsville, Doosan, all of those other cities have their own mayor. But we were ignored at the time. And now, all of a sudden, everybody wants to give us a mayor. And I really don't understand the mindset on why didn't you give us a mayor the first time? Why now? And why the hurry to redo the charter once again, which it has tried to fix it many times in the past and it has failed, mainly because it was rushed, like it's really being rushed this time. And I know that some people on the committee were not ready to present your findings at this time. And don't we have till August or September to actually finish the report?
Yes.
I'm just afraid that once again, it's gonna be botched. And I think more, research and thought needs to be put into this process. I mean, we've gone from mayor, no mayor, mayor, no mayor, consolidated, deconsolidated, back and forth. I've been here since 1961, and there's always been a problem. And I just think maybe rushing it again is not gonna help matters. And I'm still aggravated that we didn't get our mayor.
I was the mayor.
But I just wanna know what the difference why now all of a sudden, because you had all of the reasons not to give us a mayor, and now all of a sudden, you want to give us a mayor.
Personally, I always want a mayor. So also, I always want, I've been saying, I told it to Joey Durrell, when I sat with him at a coffee with him, I didn't approve of the role that he was in. I said the same thing to Joe Roll, I had coffee with him, the same thing. I always wanted a mayor.
But why didn't they give us one last time? Why do we have to go through all of this again in terms of asking us again?
Yeah.
So, Roddy, would you please, Ms. Connie did bring up a really good point about the timeline. Would you elaborate a little bit more on the timeline? This is, again, not the final document. This is the portion where we come to public, I'm taking the words right out of your mouth.
So yeah, let me use your concerns a little bit. July 22nd, we're probably not gonna follow process. We talked internally, we were thinking that it might be July-ish, get a couple more weeks before we go to the final. We're still getting public comment. And we get public comment up to the day before our next meeting, so I think we'll be there to have time to really get it done. We're still in a 2 to 3 year process of getting this done. If they call a charter commission, right? Legally, we cannot tell a charter commission they have to finish before 18 months. 18 months is the state law says you have to get a charter commission. The charter commission can get whatever they want. citizens still have to work. 100%.
Probably worth saying into the microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. So if a charter commission says we're gonna do X, Y, or Z, whatever that plan is, it has to go to the US State House.
We have Bill, and then, if you wanted to say something since you're on. Okay.
Okay, I'm Bill Linebacker, I'm on the Protect the City Committee, and I agree, we want to take as much time as needed so we can get it right. Okay, nobody in this room wants to go through what we've been going through for the past X number of years, so we take as much time as needed, okay, and then we get it correct. When I submitted my resume to be on the Protect the City Committee, okay, and it's in public view, you can I wanted some definite things. Number one, I want a mayor. Just like every other municipality has a mayor, with the same kind of autonomy, the same kind of authority, same kind of responsibility. I want a city council, just like every other municipality has, with the same kind of responsibility, autonomy, authority, exactly the same. Okay? No more, no less, but exactly the same. Okay? I'd also like to have protection for the city's greatest asset, which is LUS and LUS Fiber. I would also ask the parish council to come up with a plan for some sort of stable revenue stream. Okay? It seems like, with the money problems that everyone has nowadays, that we look over here and we take a little bit from here, and we take a little bit from here, and then we rededicate this, and we do this, okay? So, Mr. Carlson sitting right there, please do your best to come up with a stable revenue stream to help the parish. I'm asking you, okay? We want the best for every person in Lafayette and in Lafayette Parish. And I think that if we take our time, we can get it done. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you again for your service. We had, we have time for one more, this last comment.
Sally Herman, I just have a question. If you do have the option for Lafayette to elect its own mayor, do all the municipalities in the parish have to approve that?
Yes.
Yes. If the proposal is, with the commission, whatever, that Lafayette will elect its own mayor, does that have to be approved by all the other municipalities in the parish?
Yes. Yes. Any changes to the charter?
That seems unconstitutional.
Full disclosure, me and Sally used to work together.
I wanted to allow, because it is 7 o'clock, I wanted to allow Councilman Carlson, and again, thank you for coming. I know we're all pointing at you. We're not. Well, please, you want to say a few words, again, this is not, I cannot say it enough, this is not an us versus them, this is not we're trying to kick you to the curb, because every inch of the city is in a parish, we do need to work together, and I brag about the parish council and the city council all the time, is that we do a great job of working together and compromising, and having conversations and having dialogue, so that needs to continue, just like those who have children, you don't tell your children to fight it out to the death and whoever wins, so, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna say no.
I don't have kids, so I have older brothers, that's how it works in our house, no one, so, but you would ask them to work together and hear each other out and compromise and work together, right? So, thank you again for coming.
Thank you so much for the invite. And I do have 2 kids, so if I end up with one, we all know what happened to the other. That's right. No, certainly, thank you to Liz and Ronnie, both reached out to me and invited me to come tonight. I thought it was really important to be here. And thank you to all of you. You took time out of your day after work, after everything going on, to come and learn more about what the Protect the City Committee has been working on for the last 4 months. And I think that's
truly important. And that's really the biggest testament out of all of this, that you're that interested and took time to come out here. And I honestly don't know what to say right now, because there was a lot that was said, and I would have liked to have the opportunity to maybe address and speak specifically to some of those questions. I certainly get the desire to have Lafayette have its own mayor. I certainly understand that, and that's kind of the one comment that I hear consistently, both here in the Protect the City Committee and when I'm talking to different people. You're absolutely right. It seems absolutely ridiculous that the other municipalities and the unincorporated areas of the parish will vote on a simple charter amendment to say, even if it was just that Lafayette will have its own mayor and then everyone will get a vote on that. That does seem ridiculous at face value, and I certainly understand that. And I would say this: I don't think that many people would oppose that vote if it was strictly that, and if that was the only change that's going to happen. But it's even spelled out in the 29-page report from the Protective Committee, City Committee. I think you should read it if you have nothing better to do with a couple hours of your time. But it simply isn't just having a mayor or not, because there are a lot of other consequences that are connected to that. And so it's not simply a vote of a mayor from the city of Lafayette or not. I agree. There's been a lot of statements that are made. I will say this: I thought this was a very important point that was made. One, we're not living under 1961 tax dollars. We're living under 1961 tax rates with exponentially more tax revenue coming in, and there's a big difference. I think the lower taxes that we have in Lafayette Parish has allowed us to still thrive and grow, and just look at anywhere around town and around the parish, and that's evident. We have grown, and we have not been stuck in the 1960s, not growing. And I think one of the reasons that we've been able to do that, especially going through the shift in the economy that we've seen, we were in 80, I mean, my parents lived here whenever, in the mid-80s, right? When interest rates were 15, 16, 17%, and everyone thought that Lafayette was gonna go bust, that we were gonna turn into a West Virginia coal town, right? And if you've lived here long enough, you remember those days. I think one thing that's allowed us to thrive and continue to grow and continue to grow is that we have such a low tax rate as compared to some of the other areas in the state. And so but increasing taxes dramatically is, I think, will hurt our economy as we are transitioning away from oil and gas to other sectors. We're going through a major transition in our economy, and I think we've got to reduce as many barriers to entry as possible for different types of business. So I think we've done that. Two, if the city of Lafayette wants better parks and rec, because I heard that statement mentioned, it has nothing to do with me. Go to your city council and say, we want to pay more in taxes for parks and rec, and they can introduce a resolution, and with 3 votes, they can put it before, and it can't be vetoed, and it'll put it before the voters in the city of Lafayette only, and I have no say-so over it, and the unincorporated voters have no say-so over it, and the city of Broussard has no say-so over it. And we can have more money spent on parks. So the idea that we have to protect the city from the big bad parish that's destroying it is a false assumption. And there are many things that can be done by the city council saying, we want to do this for the city, and we're going to move forward and do that. And so I know we're running out of time. I would love to sit and I will answer any question. I will stay here as long as it takes to answer questions and address some of these things. It's been painted that very little can be done because the parish is holding the city back. That's just not the truth. It might appear that way, or that's part of the story, but it's not the entire story. And I think that we can work together and find ways to move things forward. Look, no one thinks that the charter is perfect. I don't. No one here does. It is a mess. The question is, to get to something better, do we have to scorch the earth and go back to nothing and rebuild? And that's what it appears to be communicated versus, let's start to make small changes. Let's change it here and let's improve this. Like we did this past year when the parish got rid of all of its parks because we didn't have a funding source. We agreed with the city. We said, you're right, it's not fair for you to spend money on parish parks. We got rid of all of our parish parks, and now 6 or 7, and now every single tax dollar that goes to Parks and Rec from the city of Lafayette is being spent in parks in the city of Lafayette. We can take department by department, area by area, and continue to do that. And it doesn't require a charter amendment. So there are charter amendments that do need to happen. There are some things that don't need a charter amendment, and I think we should continue to pursue those. But again, thank you all for being here. I've talked too long, and I'll stay here as long as you want, and we can talk about all of those issues.
Thank you, Josh, appreciate it, and thank you again for coming. Josh and I, for Ronnie, are happy to stay as late as you want, keep this conversation going. This is not the end of it. We sort of believe when we were the first to host a town hall. Ronnie, can you announce the other town halls? I'm also going to have it on my Facebook page, so don't scramble to write it down. You can pick it up there, ask us to come later.
So next up is Pat Lewis, District 1, and Gwendolyn, District 5. That's Wednesday, June 16th, at the Clifton Chenier Center. That's 220 West Willows. Woo! Been talking too much. 5:30 p.m. 7:30 p.m. And then on Thursday, June 17th, here in the St. Lawrence Conference Room at 6 p.m. will be Nanette Cook and her Jan Swift. Sorry, Jan. Jan will be here to discuss the draft report. And then Andy Duncan and Mark Pope will be Thursday, June 17th as well at the Revolution Center, 7 p.m. 1990 U.S. Landry. We're also going to have our next committee meeting is Tuesday, June 22nd, 5:30 p.m. We also have a special one on June 21st at 5:30 p.m. at ACA at ASM Yards. It's going to be all of our Texas City community members there. I hope we're all there. So we have kind of sort of like a roundtable discussion and have a nice discussion on that. So, and before we wrap up, I just want to say I kind of echo John Morrison's remarks too. There's some changes in the that you can make in the current charter. There's some things that we can work towards. And you know, there may be some major changes like we talked about earlier. What happens to Lafayette consolidated government if you don't have a mayor, if you have a city mayor? What happens to those departments? Can we split them up a certain way where it's equitable, where we still consolidate services? But there's one thing I think that we can work with without some form of overarching